the X-Files are opened Friday.
People wrote the ads, and now we're gonna see what happens. Every letter.
Oh my God! I hate this guy.
Every date.
So I do a few magic tricks, Sue, and I thought perhaps,
Can I touch your hand?
Do you want to read my palm?
Everything else.
Chicken, come here, chicken.
Next.
Okay, that was a bust.
The classified dating experiment. Next, Oprah.
Thursday at 4 on King 5.
Oh, my Lord!
Northwest firefighters flip their sled as they go for glory in a high-speed winter sport.
Now they're sawing him out of there, Bill. There's obviously some problem inside there. Ski patrol, EMTs, fire.
But they won't give up as they make repairs and prepare themselves for a race you won't see in the Olympics. Plus, a Northwest screenwriter reveals clips from rare first films that top Hollywood stars would rather forget.
Discover your Northwest with Evening Magazine.
That's Thursday at 7 on King 5.
King 5 salutes Black History Month.
Thanks for staying up later. The director, Martin Scorsese, is with us, and in effect, this is our final true later. We'll be on Friday night for an hour to kind of wrap things up, but this is our last interview, and in a sense, a classic later, because we've always liked to talk to people who have a body of work and a willingness to talk about it. So we've got 2 nights to do it. We'll start with this. When did you first understand what the director did?
What I realized what a director did was when I saw Wells' Citizen Kane on television in the late 50s. And then I was able to go back, mainly because Wells' style was so expressionistic. It was out there, it was out front. You could see the camera moving. You could feel the editing. You could see what the actors are doing in one take, where how he blocked the actors, and how much dialogue, and whether the dialogue was kind of looped in a funny way, where he cut words together. You can really taste what directors were doing at that point by watching his style. But it allowed me then to go back and watch pictures by John Ford, where you supposedly can't see what the director's doing. That's even harder. And it doesn't mean that a director doesn't, you know, like William Wyler would go for that one solid image and hold that image for ages. And it looks simple, but it's not simple at all. It's like there isn't 5 places to put the camera for this scene. It's one place, and this is the place. And you're over here, and he's over there, and this is how you move. And it's very, very controlled. There are many, what I guess I'm saying is that there's so many ways to go about directing, but the first one that made itself evident to me was the Wellesian style, and then I was able to go back and see more subtle things, you know?
Does this oversimplify it, or is it fair to say that you never saw, as much as you were thrilled by films, fascinated by them, you never saw your life, and most importantly, your neighborhood where you lived, you never saw it on film or anything like it?
No. Closest we came, I mean, the first thing I remember seeing was Force of Evil. It's a brilliant film by Abraham Polanski, who was then blacklisted. That was one of the great losses, because he was a writer who did the script for Body and Soul, a film directed by Robert Ross and John Garfield.
Right, John Garfield.
And then a year later...
Right, like I'm telling him he's right.
Well, it's...
He needs that assurance.
Yes. But Garfield then did this movie, Force of Evil, and it was about the numbers racket. And it was more than that. It was about the corruption. And it's really about brothers, in a sense. It had a big influence on Raging Bull and a number of other pictures of mine. And that was the first, because I remember everybody playing numbers and stuff. So that's the first inkling that, yeah, that's some sort of recognition from Hollywood, but it was not exactly, not recognition, but portrayal of this life that I saw out there. But not really, indeed, it was a very different approach to it. The people's behavior that I saw that mirrored what I knew, reality, was on the waterfront. You know, Brando and Steiger and two-ton Tony Galento, who is in the back, you always keep saying, definitely. And remarkable. And
after Joe Lewis got done with him, that's all he could say.
That's all he could say at that point. His face was like a shovel hit it. It was amazing, great face. And the guy who plays the bartender, there's another guy who plays the bartender, where Brando gets shot in the arm, and in a scene. It's extraordinary faces and behavior that seem like it had just literally, when I walked out of the theater, that they were right on the corner.
As people who followed your career may know, you were asthmatic as a child. You didn't play sports much.
No.
You used to sit around and before you even heard the term storyboarding, in effect, you were drawing these comic book things that were the storyboards for later use as a director. So what I'm wondering is, did you participate in this life you seem to understand so well and be able to depict so well? Or did you just observe it from a distance? Were you, in effect, watching it out the window?
Well, obviously, I mean, if you live there, you participate. You're in it. A lot of it was viewed objectively, you know, and it was rough. It was a street culture too, so that, you know, there was the shaking down of pecking order of who was tougher and that sort of thing. And I usually got an extra. I got a dispensation because of my asthma, so it was sort of a cheat, actually. You know, oh, well, he's okay. To leave him alone. Don't bother him. And that kind of stuff. But I was kind of, I guess, around for comic relief. But there were some very difficult times, and it was pretty much Mean Streets is part of that. That growing up, there's elements in the actual Mean Streets, the actual film about myself, my old friends, that are there.
Where'd you get this?
Where?
This. What? This? Yeah, in the back. Come on. Hey, come on. What are you doing? Hey, making me look bad, Charlie. One of the girls over here. Oh, excuse me. Hey, I didn't mean to be rude, girls. Mr. Ciavello, I like your presence in the back room. If you got a moment or two.
What, you mean you request my presence for a moment or two in the back room?
I most certainly do.
Well, after you.
Nah, after you.
No, after you.
Hey, Mr. Ciavello, after you.
No, after you.
In the back.
You know, hanging out and basically living and participating in that code, in that way of life, and with that vision of life, and believing that that's basically all there was. You know, my father, working people, there wasn't a book in my house. The only thing that was to read was the Daily News and the Daily Mirror. So, I mean, people who read the New York Times, it's like they might as well be Martians to me. I had no idea what that culture's about at all. None.
So even if they didn't have these exact names, when there's the scene where they, in effect, call the roll in Goodfellas, and there's Fat Andy and Frankie the Wop and Jimmy Two Times, you knew those guys, if not by those exact names,
not by those exact
types.
names. Yeah, that type, yeah, that type. And some of them very, you know, when you're 8 years old, 9 years old, some of them are really nice to you as a kid. There are others who weren't. And you keep away from them, and sure enough, later you find out that the complexity of it is that you find out that, yes, the one guy who would be frightening the kids, or get away, don't walk in front of this hallway, get away from here, don't walk in front of this cafe, we don't want you kids here. That guy, let's say he's connected or whatever it was, and he's a difficult person. But there were also guys who were that way too, and they were very nice. And so in a sense, I got to know them as people.
How much first-hand experience did you have at any point in your life with violence? I mean, firsthand. You must have observed it, but firsthand, was your life ever threatened? Did you ever fire a gun? Were you ever in fights?
The fights are hard because, first of all, I could never defend myself. And I had a couple of friends of mine who would always take care of me, you know. There was one good friend of mine who had a number of brothers, and he would get into scraps every now and then for the brothers, you know. But both he and I felt that we didn't want to get our suits ruined. This is very important. Mohair suits, you don't want to... You know, we were delighted in the fact that we would avoid certain confrontations. We'd arrive 3 minutes late. Oh, we just missed it. Sorry, he said that? Oh, my God, I can't believe he said it. And what did you do?
Hey, if he had said that to me, if I'd have been there.
No, we didn't even press that. He said, oh, it's too bad. Because if they said, well, go get him, you know, then we're stuck. But no, there were a couple of things that we avoided. Luckily, one of the things in Mean Streets ends with them being shot in a car. And I missed that by 5 minutes. I was in the car.
Really?
Yeah. I missed it. We were just, my friend Joey and I, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Whatever happened afterwards. I won't get into it. But basically, we're in this guy's car. We're driving around. We didn't really have any cars there because it's Manhattan. In Manhattan, you don't need cars. You know what I'm saying? So there's one guy who had a car, and he was coming around, and we went with him one night just for a ride. And it was like late at night, Friday night, going into Saturday morning, I think, or Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever. In any event, it was getting really boring. And so around 3 o'clock in the morning, he said, no, just drop us off. And we went home. And something happened right after we were dropped off, and then the car was shot up. I mean, 2 of them hit. And only a few blocks away. But whatever happened, it was on the basis of a matter of almost as ridiculous as in a bar going by a guy and scraping his shoe and not saying, I'm sorry. And the guy says, excuse me, did you just see what you did?
Yeah.
I just, you know, we realized this is leather is really, I'm sorry, you know.
It's like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean
exactly,
I'm funny?
What do you mean I'm
think
funny?
I look funny? I talk funny? What do you mean? What's funny to you?
Exactly. You never know. My father was always very careful. He said, "Be careful where you go in the night and that sort of thing," because in that style, you know, that lifestyle, even if you're not participating on that level, you're around people who are, and you never know what's going to happen. And
the randomness of it is almost more frightening than the thing itself.
Yeah, the randomness of it, and the idea of the pride and the young Turks sort of trying to show off a little bit.
And we don't pay mooks. A mook. I'm a mook, yeah. What's a mook?
A mook? What's a mook?
I don't know.
What's a mook?
You can't call me a mook. I can't? No. I'll give you a mook. Hey, here's a mook. Come on, get out from behind.
There's almost as many kinds of cars as kinds of people. And when those cars need batteries, those people come to Sears, America's #1 battery store. We carry a full line of batteries for every vehicle and every budget. From our Sears 45, guaranteed for nearly 4 years for $29.99, to the Die Hard with free emergency jump starts. One battery isn't going to work for everybody, so we make sure we have the one that works for you. Sears Tire and Auto Center. We're driven to satisfy.
Dig the shape of new Frito scoops.
Okay, swing it to the right.
It scoops up dips. And holds down drips. You'll dig the taste.
I know what I like Fritos.
New Scoops corn chips.
Let her go!
Sure. Unsure. Sure. Unsure. Sure Solid has the most effective wetness-fighting ingredient you can buy. So when dryness counts, be sure to be dry.
When you're suffering from sinus pain, you can't take a medicine that can make you drowsy. Sudafed Sinus has a maximum strength pain reliever and the non-drowsy decongestant in Sudafed to relieve sinus headache and congestion, so you stay alert. Sudafed Sinus.
When Ford designed the new Ranger, it made dozens of improvements. Let's see how many you can spot. I'll even give you a couple of hints. Ranger has been America's best seller for 7 years running, and now it's better than ever. See it at your local Northwest Ford dealer. And when you get there, tell them you know all about it. And of course...
What's your take on the conversation now about violence in television and movies? I mean, obviously your films, some of them are very violent.
Yeah,
the difference is
yeah.
they're artistic and they're well received, but the blood splatters onto people at ringside in Raging Bull.
That's real, by the way. I've seen that happen.
Sure.
I saw that happen in one of those, the second fight I was at. I said people get sprayed with blood.
Yeah, and you know, the guy shoots the guy right through the head at the end, the taxi driver, and you can hear the gush. It sounds like, you know, someone split a melon open and it's splattering all over the walls. And some people might say, not me, but I'm presenting this argument, they might say, hey, the only difference between that and desensitizing violence of another kind is that Scorsese is better at it.
Possibly, you know, I mean, this is some way you could look at it. I mean, there's no doubt there was some element again, Taxi Driver, I got to tell you, we felt very strongly about Schrader's script. And we did not think, I did not think, that the film was going to be a success of any kind. It was purely a labor of love. And it was made for the people, whoever they are, wherever they were, wherever they will be, who will be interested in seeing that and empathize with it, empathize with him or whatever. And therefore, for me, I did it as honestly as possible.
Is it neutral, or do you hope that they will in fact be repulsed by it? Or is it just neutral? That's what it is. And
in terms of it being neutral is one thing, but the other thing is that there's got to be a, what's the word, a catharsis for the audience. You know, a catharsis for the audience through that violence. This is what I was hoping for. I didn't realize the film was going to be a big hit, because it actually was a big hit. But again, that's a movie, for example, that, you know, I always say this, but it's true. that at that time there was no cable. So when it was going to be shown on television, I didn't insist. First of all, if I had insisted, nobody would have listened. But I didn't insist that the film be uncut. Because if it's going through the airwaves, the air, and you're picking it up in your home at 8 o'clock at night and your kids are there, it's not, it's not, in a movie theater you pay to see it. You hear about what it is, you see ads, you read reviews, you get a sense of what you're going to go and see and you make a choice. But coming in the house, it's unsolicited. And therefore I didn't mind it being cut for TV. For television. I do mind it being cut for cable. I do mind it being cut for cable or speeded up, or what they do, some sort of thing. But in any event, what I guess I'm saying is that at a certain time, certain place, where you can make a decision to see a picture, that's up to you.
Of course, you did have to tone it down, even for theatrical release, so it didn't get an X, right?
Yes.
Some of the violence had to be muted a little bit.
Some of it muted, but we're talking about trimming a few frames of image. And, when you do that stuff, when I did it anyway, when I did that stuff, happened in Goodfellas too, where I'm doing a special, we're dealing with a special effect of blood coming out of a person's body in a way. You tend to, as I look at it, I tend to keep seeing the tubes going up the guy's arm and a guy behind him pumping and somebody else pulling a string, and it doesn't look real to me at all, so I leave it on a little longer. I said, no, that's enough. Do you think they see enough blood there? You think, in other words, did you get the point that he got shot here? Literally, because sometimes, it's the simplest thing in a film, purely information, getting across to the audience what has happened in the frame. And sometimes, because the lighting is off a little bit or something, the actors turn, by mistake, I had the camera a little more to the left and it should have been more to the right, you don't see what happened. You look at it in the rushes, you go, oh my God, we got to go back now. It's going to cost $20,000 to redo that scene. And that sort of thing. Or at that time, $20,000. Now it's a couple of $100,000. So I very often left it a little longer. And at that time, too, that myself and Schrader and John Milius and Spielberg and all of us, De Palma, were all sort of young Turks at the time dealing with the kind of new freedom in the cinema. And so we were a little bit frisky, in a way, with that kind of thing. And so when it came time to trim a few frames, I wasn't upset by that. What I did figure out, however, was to just decrease the color, because the blood, to me, looked fake. Although, looking back now, if I saw some color stills of it, it doesn't look fake to me. But at that time, when it was all edited together, and I decreased the color. I took the color out and blended it with black and white, that whole sequence, and it gave me more of a tabloid effect. A tabloid effect. I remember I remember the Daily News and the Daily Mirror, and I remember one day when I was about 8 years old, seeing a dead body on the front page of the Daily News, and it was the guy I knew across the street. He'd been caught in a robbery.
Really?
And I'll never forget that. He'd been shot in a robbery, and his mother ran the little candy store, and we would go and have soda in there. And he was a nice guy. He just went on a robbery. He got killed.
Those famous kind of tabloid pictures that the guy, I forget his name, Pesci played him in the movie.
Ouija,
yeah. The Pesci played him in the movie.
Exactly that. Raging Bull, we based it on those images, on Ouija. I mean, so that to me, being 8 years old and knowing that the guy across the street got killed this way, was something pretty shocking to me. So when I did it as a tabloid effect, when I did it by decreasing the color and making it more black and white, then I felt I wanted to make the whole picture that way. But it's too pretentious, the whole thing. So I just, it was expensive to do. And they felt it was okay then. They felt it was all right. For me, it was even stronger in my mind. But that's maybe that's just a way of my rationalization for giving in to a certain extent on some of the censorship of the picture. But quite honestly, I liked the way it looked.
After most meals and snacks, plaque pH can fall to levels where acid starts attacking teeth. These attacks can last up to 2 hours, increasing the risk of damage to your tooth enamel. That's when chewing extra sugar-free gum can help. When you chew for 20 minutes, the chewing action produces and distributes more of your mouth's natural defense, saliva, which helps neutralize acid within minutes. So in addition to regular dental care, after eating, chew Wrigley's extra sugar-free gum, because chewing helps nature fight the acid attack.
LA Tech Leap Gear, banned by the NBA. Too distracting for the league. Too extreme for the pro game. Well, too bad for them, because Foot Locker's got them. The new Leap Gear, they light when you leap. And the new Light Gear Cross Trainers, they light when you land. The new LA Techs, get them at Foot Locker before we're out.
He bought my prom dress, he brought my shoes, he bought my gloves.
Women who say they use men and dump them when they aren't getting what they want.
It was like they were begging me to use them.
You're nothing more than white trash.
I like it when I'm spoiled, and if you don't like it, tough.
But what do the men say?
Sounds like you love my money, not me.
It's time for women to start using men.
You're proud that you dumped these guys.
Next Sally, Thursday morning at 10 on King 5.
On the next American Journal, the healthcare industry has secrets that kill people.
She all of a sudden has a slight convulsion and goes and did not breathe again.
Now American Journal shows you how deadly mistakes go unreported and patients keep dying. I'm Nancy Glass. That's just one of the stories worth watching on the next American Journal.
American Journal, Thursday at 7:30 after Evening Magazine.
What's the best moment you've ever had on film? The best moment, where everything just came together and you said, this is exquisite. I'm throwing modesty out. This is a damn good bit of business right here, right now.
It's a funny thing. The first thing that comes to mind is the scene at this. It's kind of a little cheat, the answer, but because of the dramatic films, I don't know. I really don't know. But there's some moments of editing I like in certain pictures. In Raging Bull, some of the editing I really like.
The editing in the ring is
That's
tremendous.
A lot of fun. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. But the
but you had a lot of those things thought out.
Oh, I drew all the
beforehand.
pictures. Yeah, you have to, because I.
It wasn't like let's just shoot it and then edit it.
No. That's like more like selecting rather than directing. You select the best shot, and when you have 7 cameras, it's easy in a way. But what I think was interesting, this documentary I made of my mother and father is really interesting to me.
She should talk natural. She'd be better off.
I don't know what you mean, Charlie.
Talk the way you're talking to me now. That's what I mean.
Well, she told me she wanted to know how I.
Yeah, but the thing is that you talk natural. Don't try to put on you're not an actress.
I'm not putting on any airs. You're looking for a fight or something.
Talk the way you talk to me when you talk to your son.
You're looking for a fight or something there.
No.
Because I learned a lot about filmmaking, really, and that people, if they're interesting enough, what they're saying is interesting enough, you don't really have to do too many things with camera. You could just hold on the person and talk. And there's this wonderful scene I thought was really interesting, where my father's talking and suddenly says to me,
"But don't you insinuate
your tooth? You broke it? What tooth? This?
You're not supposed to talk."
What?
He's putting that in it too. Which tooth? Your tooth?
Which tooth?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
shorter. It's short. How come?
Oh.
To the side. Just that, right there.
This one?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's short.
You better get it fixed up.
Well, isn't that something he brings in the tooth?
It looks like hell. It even looks like hell. That's it.
It's not long enough.
No.
It's short.
Not long enough.
Much
You'll
shorter
see
than
for
the others.
yourself. Get it fixed.
I think the beard did that.
Yeah, it brings it out.
and it was one of these things where you see a relationship of parent to child. You understand exactly what's going on, and it's one of the things because I had really nothing to do with it. It's what they did. But luckily, the cameraman just zoomed out and caught the 4 of us at the table. And I found it fascinating. I learned a lot from it.
Your mother especially is a born performer. She's got a lot of ham in her, and you've used her in a couple of films at least, and she's gone on Letterman with you, and she's talked about you in documentaries and whatever. But what of what you've done do they like the best? And what do they have to kind of make an accommodation for and say, all right, it's Marty, it's our boy Marty. Geez, how am I going to explain this to the folks at the parish about Last Temptation of Christ?
No, that, I think, I always told a story, though, but the night that Mean Streets was shown at the New York Film Festival, it was do or die that night, and pretty much it was received very well. There was a whole group of people in a row that were booing at the end, which was good, too, because if it had, I don't mean to be funny about that, but it wasn't meant. I didn't even think that film was going to get released. I just wanted to show a certain honesty and truth that I knew about growing up, and that, granted, a lot of people were not going to go for it, and that booing, it's only a small group, but that booing made me feel right about it. It was a little offensive, but it was still, that meant that, yes, that's not for everybody, it's true. But my mother and father were there, and my father came out into the hall, and there were people crowding around, and my mother came out. And people went over to my mother and said, it's wonderful, they look at the reception. And basically she just told them, I just want you to know that we never use that word in the house. Which is true. We never use the F word in the house. It's true, we never did. But that they were mortified. It was also
Fettuccine, though, a lot.
No, we never had fettuccine. We're Sicilians. It's a little, you know, the wide mac. It's a different thing. Not even fettuccine. But what it was that at that film, the language in the film, I just did it literally, what we all spoke like in the street. And again, that's another indication. I got to tell you, I didn't think it was going to get distributed, the film. I was glad it did. I was glad it did, but I just did it. I mean, I think it was one of the first films to use that kind of language. That's why everybody was kind of shocked.
Yeah.
And anyway, they after a while, they began to understand that the kind of movies I was making were not going to be the ones embraced by the Academy or the ones. Basically, my father would every now and then tell me, "Well, that's true. That's the way it really happened," you know, and that's what I wanted to hear, because I would always, when my father took me to the movies. My mother took me to the movies. When they'd come back, or they'd be talking to their brothers or sisters about some movies they had seen, and they'd say it was good, and they'd talk about this and that, but they'd always say something like, yeah, but it doesn't happen that way. If they had shown that, that's different. And I said, well, why don't we make movies like that?
So that's the best feedback.
Yeah.
The people who lived it saying that it's authentic.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you had wise guys come up to you and say, hey, yep, you're right, that's it, that's me, that's my buddy, that's it?
Well, a lot of guys who seem to be that way have told me that. But I never ventured further into the conversation. But I had been told by Mr. McDonald, who was the head of the crime task force at the time, organized crime task force, and he played the part in Goodfellas, that Mean Streets was very, very, very accurate. In fact, it was the task force's favorite film also, and they'd go around quoting the lines.
New Clorox Automatic. It's like cleaning your toilet with Clorox bleach every time you flush.
The car on the right was filled with Castrol Syntec, a synthetic oil, the other with conventional oil. They were then drained and started without oil to prove a point. You see, Syntec has a unique molecular structure that bonds to engine parts. Lab tests show it leaves a layer of protection far stronger than conventional oil. And if Syntec protects this well now, imagine if you leave it in. Castrol Syntec protects in ways other oils can't.
It isn't the night or even the fog that gets you. It's when the team leader puts you in charge for the first time. And you decide to drop right inside Alpha Team's backyard. That's when you find out how good you really are.
Can you really find love in the personal ads? Well, these single people wrote the ads, and now we're gonna see what happens. Every letter.
Oh my God! I hate this guy.
Every date.
So I do a few magic tricks, Sue, and I thought perhaps,
Can I touch your hand?
Do you want to read my palm? Everything else.
Chicken, come here, chicken.
Next.
Okay, that was a bust.
The classified dating experiment. Next, Oprah.
Thursday at 4 on King 5.
As promised, 2 shows with Martin Scorsese. We'll tape the second one. We'll be back here with it tomorrow night. Until then, see you later.
Saturday, look who's back in school.
Stop it!
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
They're horrible.
Kindergarten Cop. Saturday.